Good evening, and thanks for joining us again tonight. We appreciate it more than you can possibly imagine. We have the great pleasure to have Bob Anderson here with us tonight. He's the executive chef for Ironstone Vineyards. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. That's
now now your background in the food industry. You got some stories to tell, don't you?
And most of them I can repeat. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time.
All right.
So I started in Philadelphia making cheesesteaks when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I've always been in the restaurant business. So.
Now, is that a comfort food for you that you'll go back and whip up a cheesesteak or something like that?
No, there's such gut bombs. No. I mean, maybe 20 years ago, right? But now it's not so much. Not so much.
Now, what's your style? What type of food do you like to make?
I think for me it's like it's somewhat inspirational when you go shopping, right? So it's got to kind of speak to me. But I really like seafood a lot.
Okay.
And that becomes kind of a preference.
Right.
I think I could eat fish every day of my life.
Every day.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, one of the things that people, and I've heard this, is about, now you spent a lot of time in Yosemite, right, at the Ahwahnee?
I was the chef at the Ahwahnee for a number of years.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you have some fun stories from that?
I do. You know, when I started there, MCA Universal was the parent company. So there were always tons of celebrities in the entertainment division would send people to us all the time. So
they were the parent company at the time.
And it was very exciting. I mean, it was. I remember. Well, Batman.
Yeah.
The guy, not the cartoon. I remember making the dinner for him one night. It was a super fun guest, but I put some bat signals in his vegetables, and he had a lot of fun with that. He came back to make sure everything was okay. Similarly, we had just most of the time the celebrities were a blast.
Right.
And a couple of them were cranky pants, but not many. Not many.
Yeah. Now with the Ahwahnee, I know you have obviously the celebrity side, but you have some of the, like foreign dignitaries too could kind of cruise through there because it's Yosemite, right? Isn't it?
Everybody that required any kind of security at all stayed at the Ahwahnee.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah.
My favorite was Laura Bush. And she was a lot of fun. Secret Service detail, not so much fun.
Right.
They're a little scary.
Right.
They're a little nervous.
They're looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but she was super nice, and any secretary level interior guys, they'd all show up, and and for us the trick was not to get too hung up on who was there,
right?
Because then you get that in your head, and it's kind of then you kind of get a little freaked out.
Yeah. If
you just think about the task at hand, what you're making for them to eat, make it good, then everything kind of else fell into place.
In some ways, regardless of, people are just people, right? At the end of the day, people are people.
And hungry people are hungry.
People. It's
and that's very satisfying.
Yeah.
So.
Now, how many years were you at the Ahwahnee?
25.
25.
Yeah, I met my wife there. My kids grew up there.
Do you still go back at all?
I was thinking about I was talking to somebody the other day about it, and I haven't been back for a while.
Right.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
For me, so you kind of go, well, I still know a lot of people that work there.
Sure.
And so I tend to avoid it just a little bit.
No,
I will go back and hike and do all that stuff.
I bet you had this is kind of dating it a little bit now, but I bet you had a few opinions a few years ago when they tried to hold all the names hostage and stuff like that.
I was there for that. That was a little rough.
You were? That was you were at the end?
My tenure at the Ahwahnee involved getting sold a couple times. So
you
started off with MCA, and then it was Delaware North Company, and then it was Aramark for a while. So.
Right. So you were there with Delaware North that did. That was interesting.
Yeah. So it's it's an interesting transition because the MCA Universal is very exciting. DNC, they were very focused on the business at hand.
Right.
And the Aramark thing was a little bit different. So the names, the whole thing was just like, oh my goodness.
It's like you're holding pieces of history hostage. Literally. That was kind of the. For those people who may forget, because news fades, but they tried to hold the trademarks and the naming rights for the Ahwahnee.
The Ahwahnee, Wawona, Curry Village, everything.
Yes.
Because they had trademarked it all.
Right.
And so,
And the Park Service hadn't.
If you were there then, it was very difficult to tell people where you were going or what was up because you were like, what's the name again? So we all struggle with that. I think we all had like some cheat sheets around telephones so that we could go, oh yeah, that's the Majestic Hotel.
The Majestic Hotel, yes.
Yeah, that was not their shining hour. I would say
it
was a little uncomfortable for many of us.
So you were okay, got it. Okay, but yeah, people, memories are short, but from coming from the news, that was an ugly couple years.
That was a little rough. That was a little rough.
Just weird.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, glad that's gone.
Oh
right? Yeah, now we all remember what it really is.
I know one more last little question on the wine. Are there any special moments that you remember about just the building itself that was a little, because that's such an iconic.
Oh, it's super cool. And I was that guy that wanted to know how everything worked. Right. So yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff about that building that I don't think people realize. You know, like when they built it, there was no commercial refrigeration. They used to harvest ice out of Mirror Lake, hold it in this huge sawdust pit, and then above, there's 9 walk-in refrigerators that are huge. They'd put block ice.
So you had just blocks of ice.
And block ice is really heavy, super dangerous, very heavy. I carve it. I used to carve it every Sunday for the buffets, and it's like no easy task to move that stuff around. But I always thought that was pretty neat. The refrigeration and just how that would work before there was refrigeration. But
it allowed it to function almost like a normal kitchen restaurant now, but pre all the hoods. But just the work that took to be
the physical labor to do that just must have been incredible.
Right.
And so that I always found that kind of interesting. And then the other thing that's really interesting about it that I don't think a lot of people know, and I used to have a lot of fun. I used to give kitchen tours all the time. The dining room is actually a little bit smaller than the kitchen.
Okay, really?
So if most people are familiar with that dining room, you kind of go, wow, it's huge. Oh yeah, well the kitchen's a little bit bigger.
Really?
And it's mostly built like there's a steam plant like a cruise ship would have, and steam rules everything in that building. I mean, we used to cook with it, and used to keep plates warm, dishwashers, heat for the hot water.
Which kind of goes back to the era that was.
Yeah. So I mean, super neat. To walk into that building and not hear steam traps whistling. At 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, you go, oh, the boiler's off.
Right.
Because you couldn't hear. And it was like that kind of subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? I don't hear it.
Right. It should be running.
It should be going.
Yeah.
And then I was we lived and worked there for a long, long time, my wife and I. And it's funny because I was the new guy. Probably for the first 15 years that I worked.
Right.
And then, and then all of a sudden I was the guy that'd been
You're
around
the old guy.
Yeah. So, it was kind of a fun, I think it was like 1 week I kind of went from
the old guy to the new guy to the old guy.
It's okay for you to learn how to do this stuff.
Last little question. So, on the steam, this is a dumb question for most people in the audience. Why would he ask it? But was it you would have steam-fired cook pots and stuff like that for a lot of your for your soups and stuff? There'd be just a steam-fired pot.
Yeah. So the kettles are 80 gallons.
Yeah.
So huge. Not quite hot tub size, but we'd probably get you in there if we tried real hard. So yeah, those pieces of equipment.
You got a steam valve. You fire it up.
Right, and I used to say it's fun cooking in. My routine used to be when I'd come in and make the soup of the day.
Right.
You'd make 20 gallons of the soup of the day, right? So,
which is only quarter of the.
Well, no, you fill it up, but it's the process. I used to tell people, steam's really fun to cook with, and most people don't. It's really fun to cook with. It's very difficult to burn things.
Right.
Except yourself. And then, it's and then I'd be it's really, and then, then I think I put that out in the universe long enough that it was then there were people that were burning things as a result. And I'm oh, it's because I said it.
Right. They were trying to burn things.
They proved me wrong. But yeah, everything. So where the plates were stored, where the dishwashers, it's important to maintain, kind of sanitary standards.
Yeah.
We'd blow hot water under pressure. You can get above 212 degrees. With no chemicals. So for wine glasses,
it was perfect.
It was spectacular because you didn't get any kind of residue smell or anything. It was just it was really pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
But
and sometimes it's we discount the way things used to be done, just because, you know, it seems like all technology, new technology is supposed to be better, but sometimes it's just different.
Yeah.
Right?
Different.
It's just different.
Man, not necessarily better sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think the design then, you know, was just it wasn't designed to fail or ever need to be replaced. It was just we're just going to build this, and it was bomb-proof.
This is the way it's just going to be.
It's kind of a neat, you know, it's kind of a neat. I like old stuff anyway.
Right.
But this kind of took it to a whole different level because everything was like, you know, old.
Old.
Yeah.
Really old.
Really old. Yeah.
Now, more towards more recent stuff, than so to speak.
Sure.
So you were there during the whole. Anyway, I got sidetracked on the trademark issue.
It was goofy, so goofy. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Was it just a negotiating technique, a little bit of brinksmanship they were trying to get?
I mean, probably way above my pay grade.
Right.
But it seemed as though the intellectual property was a part of that, but so were a number of other pieces of information that were pretty crucial to running a resort business. So, you know, we couldn't see HR records or financial history of anything. So you kind of go, you know, you can.
So you're flying blind.
In this business, you kind of go, well, we did 100 covers last night and we sold, you know, whatever.
Right.
All that just evaporated overnight. So you kind of had to remember. I mean, it's a business of subtleties anyway.
Right.
But when you have the
patterns are kind of nice.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, and you know they had 50 years of patterns, so you could get really close.
Yeah.
You know, we guess a lot.
Sure.
You know, what people are going to eat that night or whatever, and you kind of this removes you start to kind of focus that guess more and more and more, and then you know then it just
for 50 years you can go back and say, okay, it was snowing. It was 75. It was plus we the next. You know, you could always look at a weather on a certain date of the year and almost preach.
It's funny you say that because that was a really integral part of part of the historical kind of predictions. Weather was always part of it, and then you know visitorship, and then you know how many people are in hotels, and then we all had kind of an informal, very scientific way of looking at parking lots, or shuttle buses, just to see how many people are around and kind of go, it's spring break, we got a lot of it's the uninteresting part of it, but it is kind of fun to look into the crystal ball and kind of guess and see what's going to happen. So.
Well, let's segue to more of the modern stuff. Now, at Ironstone you were kind of brought on right in the middle of the COVID stuff.
Right in the thick of it, yeah. Wow, what an exciting time, right? And it's an exciting time in the restaurant business anyway. But, so right in the thick of it, and then, you know, I think Ironstone, I'm very excited about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, this year is kind of like that, let's sit tight and kind of hold our bootstraps and see what happens. And I thought that about last year as well. Right. I think this upcoming year is going to be like I'm really excited about what's going on there. And excited to be part of it. I mean, we've known the Kautz Sr. and then Steven for, you know, it seems like 20 years. Right. It's probably a little bit less.
Right.
But what a neat, you know, what a beautiful, it's a beautiful location.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be able to drive the food to kind of the, you know, the level of the ground, you know, just kind of like just kind of push everything up a little bit. It's very satisfying.
You know, it's another one of those things that's interesting is that people sometimes forget in some ways how lucky we are as an area to have a facility like Ironstone in a small, we're the middle of nowhere.
Right.
You know, and to have a facility like an Ironstone there is still pretty amazing at times. You drive out there and it's like, you know, it's like last weekend for the concourse. You know, for the concourse.
Looked at your next car. Did you find your next car?
Right,
Good.
But just to see the cars laid out on the grass, you know, it's like it's pretty cool.
I agree.
You know?
I think the grounds are spectacular.
Yeah.
And we had lived in Murphy's for 20 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm kind of embarrassed to say we didn't go out there that much.
Right.
And then once you do, you're kind of like, wow, there's daffodils everywhere. Or I remember buying a Christmas. We used to go out and buy a Christmas tree there every year. And, you know, it's like you kind of hit and miss kind of stuff. And then you kind of go, wow, there's a lot to it.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Now, as far as food and bev stuff, you know, I know you're starting up the more of the bistro, the restaurant up in, know, up in the stairs. But in some ways, you have the number of options you have to do things, like either down in the, you know, the cellar, the tunnel. In the
caves?
Yeah,
cool.
is there?
We still do a lot. It's a premier wedding venue.
Right.
I mean, it's a great place to have a wedding. There's one going on right now as we speak. But, you know, because the grounds lend themselves to it. And then also, if you kind of go subterranean there, it's pretty neat. I mean, there's a lot more to it than I think people realize.
Right.
And so, you know, you can see that. You can take that tour with Conrad. That's super fun. I think he does it on Saturdays. I'm sure he'll correct me when I get back. But once you kind of see, and it's like, I don't want to say it's like the Mystery House, but it is something that just kind of keeps unfolding. And the stuff in the cellars is pretty neat. I mean, they use one for production stuff, and then the other one we get to play with
You get to play with for events and venues.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, it's much bigger than you think it would be. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that as we kind of move forward.
You know, there's the public part of it. People don't realize. I mean, it's like, what is it, 1,000 acres or something like that?
I think it's like 7. But And Mr. Couch Sr. told me recently it's almost 11. So I'm not
sure.
I'm not sure if it's 7,000 acres of grapes and then, you know, the grounds, or, you know, kind of what that is. But it's a much bigger spot than I thought it was.
Right.
And, you know.
And it's big even from the public side of it. So you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, what is some of the current, like, what's some of the plans for some of the, I know you guys have been opened up to where, you know, people have always asked them, hey, why don't you do more of an evening restaurant type of stuff? And you're starting to now, right?
Well, we're starting to. We've been doing this this restaurant kind of, I won't say it's a pop-up, but it's kind of got that feel. Thursday through Sundays. And we started a little bit earlier, trying to get some of the folks from the tasting room maybe to come down.
Right.
So we dinner from 4 to 8. Reservations available online. You can call me if you want. I have a phone. I walk around with it in my pocket. Generally, there's so much space there that it's, you know, we always have room.
Right.
The only time we don't do that is when there's a concert or a really big event.
Right.
That kind of would pull us away from kind of those other things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think in our world at least, we want to focus on doing one or two things really well instead of 25 kind of not so well.
Right.
So that's kind of the goal.
Now, for an organization like Ironstone, like for Concourse Weekend, for your side of it, you had to fire up for like Friday night dinners and all the rest of that stuff. Because events like that change your world significantly.
Significantly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did a couple of buffets for 350 people.
Right.
And then
just got
this reoccurring nightmare of the 800 box lunches we did, which is, you know, you say that and you kind of go, wow, that's a lot. And then you kind of go, yeah, the footprint for that is pretty impressive because it's much more than you think it is.
Right.
And so that was a big part of it. That was a big part of it for us. It was like,
box.
yeah, it's like, oh my goodness. Because you can make about 100 at a time. And you kind of go, okay, now what do we do with it, right? So that was my big concourse thing. And then lots of people talking to me about cars. And I'm not a car guy.
Right.
So
you just nod and smile.
Well, I've learned a few things, you know, but I'm still not a car guy. And a lot of it was lost. The message was lost on me a little bit, but it was the folks that come to those things are so passionate.
Oh yeah.
About those cars. It's just like, wow.
Well, sometimes it's easy to take some of them for granted too, because I know in 2019. I walked past an old car that I know one just like it had sold for like $6 million like 2 weeks before, and it was just sitting out there on the lawn. People are rubbing up against it, and little kids looking at it, and you walk past it, and you're like going,
pretty cool stuff.
You know, it's just, you know, it's unobtainium. You know, it's really, you know, it's
and
just,
then would you drive it to the store?
No, that's the point where a lot of those things out there are so valuable now that they're literally just a piece of art.
Yeah, and they drive. A lot of them came in on trailers. Yeah. And then the folks that entered stuff, that was a lot of fun too, because it's maybe something that's going to be that car.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah.
John Smith just drove it down to, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's kind of fun too.
I know we're kind of going off in the weeds, but it was kind of fun to see when they took the old race cars, you know, the old out on the field out in the back. So basically what they did is some of the race cars from the 20s, they took out in a field which they had wet down a little bit out there. They let them run some laps, so it wasn't just a static display. They had them out there in the.
And they've had the boat things, and you know they go pretty big with that stuff.
Yeah.
My focus again was the food. 800 box.
800 box lunches.
So I didn't get to see as many cars as I would have liked.
So, like the wedding schedule is a big thing on your...
It is. Yeah. It is. We do a lot of weddings. We did a ton at Diawani, too.
Yes.
I mean, at Diawani, I think we do like 165 a year.
Right.
Which means many Saturdays, spring and fall, there's multiple events going on. And I'd have a kid that worked for me for years that was like the traffic cop. Couldn't get out of the kitchen unless you knew where you were going.
Right.
Similarly, at Iron, it's not quite that level yet. It hasn't really bounced. That part hasn't bounced back yet. It will, I suspect.
Well, I know a few years ago there was actually one or two weekends where you were trying to make sure that one wedding wasn't in the line of camera shot for another. You know, it was trying to. Yeah. You were juggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the scary part for us is you just really want to make sure that the wedding cake for the Smith wedding
goes to the right.
Yes, because hell hath no fury than the bride or the mother of the bride, because it's like, oh. Happened a couple times in Yosemite. It was resolved very quickly without anyone noticing, but it's like, wow, you catch a little breath of that and you're like, oh. Let's not ever have that happen again. And that precipitated me hiring a traffic cop to sit in the kitchen and go, where are you going with that? You going, because you can go there, you can go there.
So if you layer the normal food issues and then you put a wedding on top of that, you got a whole...
Yeah,
you got all kinds of
fun. You're juggling. You got the chainsaw and the axe and everything going, right? But that's the fun part of that's the fun part of my business. I mean, it's keeping stuff going.
Yeah.
You know, I can't. The adrenaline of doing that stuff is like really that's the exciting part in the industry. I think for most people that do what I do, it's like that's the fun.
It's showtime.
Yeah, it's like let's go.
It's showtime.
Yeah.
So. Let's see. So we're looking out. You know, we've kind of been. You know, last year was last year, but this year everybody's kind of figuring out their processes and stuff like that. So what's some of the goals like for 2022? Do you think?
Well, I think we've got some exciting stuff on the blocks. I'm not sure we're releasing all the information quite yet. Yeah. But super excited to be part of it.
Right.
But I think the restaurant part of it we're gonna build out big.
Good.
Which I'm very excited about because I think that's really what Ironstone needs. You know.
Oh yeah.
And what a cool place to have lunch or dinner and drink some wine and wander around on the grounds. And so I mean, part of it is pressing forward.
Right.
And just making sure that we've dotted I's and crossed T's and everything's kind of where it needs to be, but then adding more to it. And then I'm always that guy that's just like, let's add more to it.
For people who don't know, I mean, like for example, with the deli operations, can somebody go get like say a box lunch for a wine if they're going to go visit some wineries or obviously start at Ironstone, but if they're going to do the dry. What type of things do you
Absolutely. So we're doing, it's kind of a grab and go. It's kind of a we're transitioning kind of back to, I don't know if normal's the right word, but we're kind of transitioning back to kind of what things were.
Right.
So there's a lot, the deli itself is a lot of grab and go stuff now. And it's in boxes, so you're not, there's not a lot of people touching things or doing stuff. And, you'll see stuff there. We probably just made it 20 minutes ago. Or, the process for us downstairs to kind of keep that very fluid and kind of working. Right. Opposed to camping someone out up there and having them make your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We've made some ahead of time. We'll make 5 or 6 at a time and kind of just keep that moving. So a lot of good stuff. Kind of a throwback to my life in Philadelphia when I was a kid is we're doing a like my favorite thing right now for lunch is this hoagie we're doing with all this great Molinari sausage and I'm not sure everybody kind of gets it, but the folks that are from my old stomping ground are like, oh, this is like the real deal. And I was like, it's better than the real deal because the Molinari products are just so much nicer.
Right.
But it's focusing on really good stuff, and if you take good things and you add a little bit to it, it doesn't, it gets better.
Yeah.
It's kind of the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as we've got like say 5 minutes left, so if you're going to do kind of the synopsis of the Ironstone if people are coming up for the weekend or something like, what, from your perspective, what would you suggest that people do? What's the suggestion?
Well, I'd say come and see us.
Right.
Go see the Nugget, because I just think that's just cool stuff. And Mr.
Sometimes you forget that's there, even if you're. It's like it's like, oh man.
Yeah, and then I think there there's so much stuff that it's easy to kind of be lost for a moment.
Right.
So just I think experience it. Walk around, enjoy it, run the kids around on the field a little bit.
Sure.
Tire them out. There's lots of little things for kids to do. There's all kinds of stuff on the grounds, but I think that part of it's really pretty special. And then again, the grounds are so spectacular and have been forever that I think that's pretty neat too. But then the food part of it is just going to be in addition. I'm just trying to match it up with everything else that's cool out there.
Yeah.
And that'll be the goal.
Yeah.
And I think we're hitting on
I think
most of our cylinders, and we'll be hitting on more and more as we kind of practice and kind of build the team and move it forward.
As somebody who's lived in the area for a while and kind of seen Murphy's mature in some ways, mature over the last, say, 20 years, do you see a difference? I do. I see a difference in the town to where, it was maybe even 10, 15 years ago, people were like, they were excited, hey, we got wineries. But now it's like, now that some of them have done really well on some of the tastings and everything else, do you see the maturation of Murphy's as a destination and a venue?
I do. I think the hiccup's going to be finding a place to be in Murphy's, and that's always kind of the challenge, I think, in Calaveras.
Yeah.
But if you can figure out how to get here and do that, I think the bar has continually raised with the quality of wine. Do you see that?
Okay.
And the food offerings, we want to be the best kids on the block, of course, and that's
right.
And I used to tell people, and I tell the staff this too. I'm not competitive. I just really like to win at those things.
Yes.
So, driving that whole thing just seems to kind of just be gaining momentum and moving forward, and I think that's really neat stuff.
Yeah, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, and even in town, Nelson's Candy Store, and just all this stuff that doesn't exist really anywhere is kind of there. And Murphy's itself, I think, has gone through a couple of transitions, but it seems to it's cooler than our neighbors, I think.
Yes.
I think it's got some character, and I think as things kind of progress, it'll continue to be kind of a neat, fun destination for people to go to.
And do you think it's inaccurate to say, because coming from the Yosemite side of it, but Yosemite, I mean, it's not a one-trick pony, but if you have Mariposa, I mean, in our area, we may not have a Yosemite, but there's so many different things people can do in our area that, I'm not saying it matches a Yosemite as far as a destination, but in some ways it's better in the fact that you can, there's more stuff. Right?
I think it's real. I think it's cool, and the part of the 4 corridor is so special. I think what we see is, or what we notice is, everybody that comes to a lot of visitors in California will be kind of north in the Tahoe Basin or south in the Yosemite Basin. So if you want to have an outdoor experience and living in Yosemite, that was kind of a big part of our lives.
Oh yeah.
This is where it is, because there are a little fewer. There are somewhat fewer people in kind of those remote areas.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Yosemite becomes a little monochromatic at some point. And then, this area, it's like there's big trees. There's all kinds of cool things. When we moved here, my kids thought it was great that there was a movie theater within 30 minutes of our house. Because if you live in Yosemite, the first street light was in Grove. It's like an hour and a half later, you go see a movie. And not a big deal in our house, but my kids were like, there's a movie theater. And I was like, wow, small wonder. So.
Thanks for spending some time with us. Thanks for doing what you do, and looking forward to seeing what the future holds for Ironstone.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.